Hello there. Hi. Assalamu alaikum. This is Amna here from My English Matters. And I'm here with Madam Azimah today. If you are not familiar with who we are two of the creators of My English Matters, where we help Malaysians and second language learners improve their English through our online courses, workshops, and our monthly classes. So today we are going to be talking about how to stop saying and other filler words. So Madam Azma is here with me today. I'm going to ask her a few questions on how we can stop saying and other filler words. So hello Madam Azma, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Amna. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I was supposed to do this video by myself yesterday, but I thought last week we had fun. We talked about setting goals. So if you haven't watched that one, you can go back, look for our videos. So I thought today it would be great for us to do it together. It would be fun. And first of all, I'm going to ask you this first question. Do you think saying and saying or other filler words that people tend to use when they speak, do you think that that is a problem? Do you think it's wrong?
There are two ways to answer this. One, I will say yes, and the other way, I'll say no. Yes, when people point out that you tend to say these things and it is annoying or it deters from your point, or you come across as someone who's unprepared if you say a lot of ums and people say this to you, or you think yourself that when you say this, it undermines your credibility. So if your ums are irritating to you and your audience, then it is a problem. However, I would also say that it's normal for everybody to say ums, especially in a conversation, especially if you see, even I say ums myself, if you have to say something spontaneously. So I think in some ways, ums are also natural. So you have to balance it out between sounding natural versus sounding or coming across as annoying and irritating. So you have to have a balance with that. So we're going to cover things that are, if you can overcome the ums, great. So we're going to give you some tips.
Yeah, because I noticed that I said at the beginning. I was like, oh no, what people are gonna comment, right? Oh, I'm not just said and you actually said that you said and I didn't even notice
Yes.
that. So I think when you say if it sounds like you are natural or you are conversational, I think it's fine. But if you are saying it too much, maybe your ums are really long, like or maybe you every single sentence or every single transition you say and it and you sound like you are not confident with yourself, or it's just distracting to other people where people can actually count the number of ums that you use in a sentence, then maybe that's something that you need to overcome, right? Maybe it's maybe it's maybe it's some words like what do you say or what do you call it. I use those, but not too much to the point where people say, you use it too much. So
Mm-hmm.
my second question for you, Madam Azima, is number two: how can people know if they are using too many or too many other filler words that they use?
How can they know?
Yeah,
Right. Firstly, you
what can they do?
can ask from feedback. You can ask feedback from others if you tend to use ums and other fillers that are distracting. And secondly, what you can do yourself is actually watch yourself. So it's a good idea for you to record. This is something that we do, Amna and I. What we do as well, we do a lot of recording ourselves on video. So just use your camera and just record yourself talking about things. If it's like as a presentation that you have to do at your office, practice first on camera and watch yourself without editing. Watch yourself if you tend to say ums. Ask yourself difficult questions. Pretend that you're answering a challenging question from a coworker. Catch yourself thinking on the spot what happens if you say ums a lot. That's when you know, oh yeah, I do tend to say 30 ums a lot. If I can reduce that, so that will be a good way as well. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah, I think that's great because I remember when we were doing our workshops back in 2019 before the pandemic, and then we asked our participants to get their friends to record them so that they can watch themselves present and not to be critical of themselves, but to point out the parts or what they can improve on. So if they say a lot of ums, then it's something that they need to improve on. So
Yeah.
my next question, what do you do and what tips do you have to stop saying ums or other filler words? If you do realize that, I'm a person that says a lot of ums, I say a lot of likes, what can I do? I just want to share this story that a few years ago I was on a podcast and I was talking to just said again, but anyway, I was talking to the host of the podcast, and as I was talking, I noticed that I was using a lot of the word like. So I was saying, so me and my husband, we were like having dinner, and then I was like, and he was like, and during that point in time, I was telling myself, okay, I'm now you gotta stop saying like. So for me, I notice it myself, but if you are a person that maybe you're just too nervous and you can't even listen to yourself, you can't even hear yourself saying those filler words, I think it would be great to actually record yourself. So back to the question, what tips do you have for people who want to stop saying or they want to reduce the number of ums or ahs or other filler words in their sentences?
Okay, so the first tip is to pause or just stay quiet. Or if you tend to say ums and it's really loud and you notice it, maybe you could just turn down the volume a little bit so that people don't really hear it. So it's either pause or turn down the volume. Why I say that is because there are some people who tend to say ums really loudly and they open their mouth really wide as well and say the and it's really long, it's stretched out. So what you can do is just reduce that or minimize that. And I would say pause is the strongest way for you to do that. So just pause instead of ums. Okay, that's
Yeah,
tip.
I think that a lot of people they find that they want to fill in the silence because they are thinking or they don't know what to say. So they think that by adding that it fills in that awkward silence. But what do you have to say about that awkward silence?
All
Do
right.
you really think it's awkward?
Not really. Sometimes you think that your silence is going on for too long, but it's actually normal. It actually gives time for the audience to process what you're saying.
Mm,
And you think it's normal because you don't think it's normal because you're in your head a lot. But pausing and creating that little bit of silence gives time for the audience to get ready to listen to your next point or whatever that's coming out of your mouth. Yeah.
mm-mm. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
But what if that silence goes on for too long?
Okay, then. All right. So that leads me to my next tip then. If
All
your
right, great.
silence is too long, what you can do is obviously look down at your notes. Now, I know some of you don't have notes or some of you have long written notes. So let's take a look at these two situations. So let's say you are ready for your big presentation and you have your notes, right? Look at mine. I've got like huge, I don't know, it just happens to be here, right on my table. Now, obviously, if you're the type of person who writes your speech or your points in sentence form, you could get in trouble if you look at your notes and then you just tend to panic and you just read the entire thing. So that's not good either. And it's also not good if you have nothing prepared, right? So how do you strike a balance between the two? So when I say my second point is to look down at your notes, I want you to prepare your notes, if possible, in key points only, in point form only, or a mind map, whatever. That when you look at it, it looks clean. Your points are there to help you look at it, and you're able to elaborate. It should be helpful for you, and it should not. You should not be tied to it that you're reading long paragraphs. So helpful
Mhm.
notes. Look down at your helpful notes to help you.
Mm, okay. Yeah, that's good. So how do what if they don't have notes, right?
Yeah.
What would you
So if
do?
you don't have notes, I teach this in my, this is like a bonus tip suddenly. I teach my students to think in PREP. So when
Mm.
you hear a question or something that you're like, oh my gosh, my mind is going blank, right? I mean, my mind's going blank. So think in PREP, what is your point? P, what's your point? What's your reason for saying so? So your point is X, A, whatever. And then R, reason, because I said that because. So just quickly jump to the because PR, right? E, an example is, and then back to P, that's why I said A. See, that's why I said PREP. So I hope that makes sense. PREP is something that I teach and I give my students practice so that they can move on to the next point smoothly without saying too many and other filler words.
Yeah, I think that's great because sometimes when we want to move from, say, from P to R, so if you go from your point to your reason, and then you are filling up that little space between P and R with an but a tip is just to just close your mouth, keep silent during that transition, and stay focused on what is my point, then what is my reason, what's my explanation, what's my last point to close it
Mm-mm.
off,
Yeah.
right? So having that, those short, the shorter transitions, the shorter your transitions are, the better they can be, so that you can avoid that really long, awkward silence. But even if
Mhm.
your silence goes really long, it's okay. Just quickly get back to focus. Like, what's my reason? What's my explanation? What's my point again? Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
what's your next tip?
Okay. So my next tip, Amna was talking about moving to the next point and how you go about that, doing that smoothly. What you can do is slow down. So don't rush. Don't rush thinking that, oh, I just need to say it now before I forget. If you slow down, actually, you give yourself time to breathe and you give yourself time to process what your points are or what you want to say. Even if you're struggling with the language or you're struggling with a concept, but slowing down will enable your brain to process it and hopefully helps you to explain it much, you know, better, clear, and so on. So that's very important. And I'm practicing myself to slow down as well because I realize sometimes because I also have this problem where I tend to rush when I'm really excited. So find out your nature. When you panic, do you tend to speak too fast or do you do the opposite? So for
Mm,
me, I would say a lot of our students tend to speak faster than normal. So I would say slowing down would be a great tip.
yeah, I think some of our students, they said that they talk really fast because they don't want people to hear their grammar mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think when you're speaking, it's normal to make grammar mistakes, especially because you're a second language learner. It's
Yeah.
normal to make grammar mistakes. What's important is that people can hear you. What you say is clear, your message is clear. And also, when you speak slowly, you don't have those, you have less of those awkward silences because you're speaking slowly and you have time for your brain to process the next word, rather than you say everything, you blurt out everything really fast, and then your brain has to catch up with what you have to say next. So when you're
Mm.
speaking slowly, that's the time when your mouth is saying something but your brain is like thinking, okay, what's the next sentence, what is the next word, example,
Mm.
for
Yeah.
example.
Mm.
Yeah, so is that all that we have for today, or do you have any more tips?
I have one last one, which is when you're given a challenging question or a challenging topic, let's say, and you need time to process that. So I want to call this see, I even I say just now. Now I'm catching myself saying as well. See, it helps when you are able to hear it, but then you think, oh, it's actually normal. It's not that bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, what you can do is you buy time. So you can buy time by either repeating the question or paraphrasing the question. So that allows you to process what you want to say, and that will allow you to go to your first point. And don't worry about the second point, third point. Just finish off your first point first, answering that question. Because if you paraphrase a question or you repeat the question, it allows you to actually interact with the person asking, right? That way you don't misinterpret the question, or you don't you don't become you don't go off topic. Okay.
Hmm. Are you going to
All
be
right.
sharing something?
I wanted to give you some filler phrases that you can use instead of ums. You can say
Okay.
something like this: "Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question." No, even though you're not that glad,
Mm.
right? But if that comes out naturally sometimes, if that's the thing that you want to say, then just say so. I'm so glad you asked that question, or this is what I think about. This is why. Then just say whatever that comes out of your mind first. What's the first thing that comes out of your mind? Or you can say, I personally believe that. You can say those are filler phrases that you can use as well, instead of just repeating
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah, because I do notice that when somebody asks someone a question and their go-to, what do you call it, the filler word that they always use is they're like so for example, somebody asks you, Amna, what is the meaning of addendum? And then this person will say, the meaning of addendum, because they have that, they are thinking. So instead of saying that, you could say like, thank you for asking. The meaning of
Mhm.
addendum is, or you could say, you could repeat that question, right? Say, what is the meaning of addendum? That's what I usually do if somebody asks me a question and I need some time to think. I'm like, what does addendum mean?
Mm.
Addendum means having that little pause. It doesn't feel awkward. It just feels like, oh, okay, this person is thinking about what she wants to say, which is fine, I
Yeah.
think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So
And I
those
just want to
are my
point
tips.
out,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to point out that when I listen to a lot of podcasters or people on YouTube, I noticed that they do also use ums. And for me, it's like, oh, it's comforting because I feel like, oh, even they say and it sounds
Mm.
natural. And maybe you've heard us say throughout this video, and know that it's normal to say makes you sound human, it makes you sound conversational, it doesn't make you sound like a robot. And I think the problem is when you just say it too much,
Mm-hmm.
it just becomes too distracting, or it just makes you sound not very confident with what you have to say. So remember that it just makes you sound natural. And
Mm-hmm.
another thing, that if you don't see a lot of ums on videos and stuff like that, it's usually because they've been edited out, or
Yes.
they have a script. Like if they're acting, definitely they have a script, so that's why they don't
Mm.
have ums. But in
Mm-hmm.
normal conversation, it's normal to have but if you use it too much, then you can use those tips. So is there anything else that you'd like to add on?
I would like to say, when you're doing a presentation, it's important that you do rehearse. You rehearse, and you even rehearse challenging questions and challenging scenarios and situations, so that it becomes a habit for you to recover from these challenging questions. I mean, not just challenging questions, challenging scenarios, like the mic's not working, the laptop's not functioning, whatever, etc. You need to have phrases ready for you to to just comfort you, so that you have phrases to say instead of oh I so that those are the things that you can also prepare for.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I just want to add on another thing about preparing for those kinds of situations, and also preparing for people to question you. So
Yeah.
that's basically what I do. I don't know if you do that. So whenever I'm doing a presentation, whenever I have to prepare for a presentation for a class, for example, and I am, talking about this point, I always think back to my audience. What are they going to ask me? Are they going to question it? Are they going to ask, like, how am I going to apply it into my everyday life, for example? So it's
Hmm.
always having that balance between what sharing and also questioning whatever you are sharing as well.
Yeah.
You are
Mm.
able to answer the questions that they may ask.
Yes. Put yourself in the shoes of the toughest critique in the audience. What would they say about your points? And can you answer or challenge them equally? Yeah, or can you still maintain
Hmm.
your composure, be
Yeah.
composed without panicking and ending up saying and other things?
And because if you're ready for that and then it happens, if somebody asks you that question, then you're also ready to just to answer them, and then they'll say, oh, she's done her work, she's done her homework. Even
Mm.
if they don't answer it, you could bring it up as well. You could say, maybe you were thinking about this, right? And then they're
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's a good point. So they may
Mm.
not even ask, but it shows that you've done some research and you are prepared. And I think that confidence also helps for you to reduce your ums and those other filler words that you may have when you're nervous. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So that's
Right.
all from us for today. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
joining us if you're watching. Thanks, Madam Azimah, for joining me today. And we hope to see you again next week. If you are not yet on our email list, just go to myenglishmatters.com, sign up to our email list, and you'll get 7 tips to help you speak with confidence through email. And every Thursday, we send you an email to help you improve your English. And also, we'll send you updates about when we open registration for our online courses and our monthly classes. So that's all from us for today. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.